It's been a few hours now with these deliberations. Do we know yet when we're likely to hear from the JSC?
Well, Timbagile, at this stage, all we know is that we're likely to hear from the JSC sometime today. Of course, we had been pre-warned that the deliberations are likely to go well into the day, but we had been hoping, and by we, I mean the media delegation that has gathered here, that certainly we would be seeing something emerging in terms of the official press communique from the JSC's media team by this afternoon. Of course, the JSC spokesperson, Advocate Darlene Mpofu SC, had confirmed to us yesterday that that process would be happening sometime in the afternoon, not committing as to when, but it certainly gives you a sense that at this hour, just after 5 p.m. already, still the commissioners and the various stakeholders are behind closed doors. But what has emerged is that following the interview, certainly of Justice Justin Mlambo, there was some controversy that erupted, and the Justice Department has also come through to issue a statement on that controversy and other developments from the JSC interviews. Now, let me read you what the statement says. The statement says the appointment of acting justice distortion. It goes on to say the Ministry of Justice and Correctional Services has noted what appears to be a deliberate distortion of the appointment process of acting justice of the Constitutional Court. In terms of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, acting appointments are made in the following manner, and it then cites the Act, which is the Acting Appointments in Constitutional Court, Section 175. So I'm now joined by Chrispin Phiri, who is the spokesperson from the Justice Department. Why was it important to release that statement and to effectively set the record straight?
Just a correction, the spokesperson for the ministry. Separate entities. Well, it was quite important for us to respond because we had seen some distortion circulating, particularly from yesterday and today, that by the minister facilitating this recommendation, he engaged in an act of criminality, or some of the words used were it was an act of judicial manipulation or an unethical act. And it is important to outline that, especially in a year where we are celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Constitution, when we do quote or speak of the Constitution, we must be able to speak about specific sections in the Constitution. And here we are providing a clarification that this is actually required. It's a constitutional obligation for the minister to ensure that he recommends to the president, who is the appointing authority, after concurring with the Chief Justice, or as the case is now, the acting Chief Justice. But also, when it comes to appointing judges of the High Court, the Constitution is quite clear as well that it's the minister that appoints after consultation with the judge president of a particular High Court or the head of a superior court. So the Constitution is quite clear what the constitutional obligations of the minister are, and to suggest that minister performing his constitutional obligations is an act of judicial capture or an act of manipulation is actually quite an egregious allegation to make, because ultimately the end product of that discussion results in the judiciary itself being maligned and not actually be the minister. So we thought that it's important that we actually call out such a nefarious statement or such a nefarious act, but also to clarify to South Africans that this is actually a constitutional obligation placed on the minister by none other than the Constitution itself. So anything less or anything to the contrary would be unconstitutional.
And for any suggestion to the contrary would suggest perhaps there are other motivations behind making such a statement in such a platform. What does the ministry make of that, and do you frown upon a platform like this, which is meant to be a platform to interview for what is most critical point of position in the judiciary, to then be made a platform to deal with some political machinations?
Yeah, clearly what we can see, and I think a number of people have observed, is that the manner in which that conspiracy is being propelled is quite deliberate, and it is designed to create certain perceptions around judicial members and the judiciary itself. And that's why it's important for us to dispel that, because when the minister performs his constitutional duty as is required by the Constitution, that cannot be interpreted as something that is nefarious or abnormal. In fact, what is normal is for the minister to interpret the Constitution correctly and perform his duties in terms of the Constitution. And so for people to come and say that is something that should be subject of a criminal investigation, then, well, it's actually a bit laughable to think that performing what is required of you in the Constitution, A, is characterized as abnormal, or B, is something that should be the stuff of, that SAPS should be seized with. But here we are. People have whatever their motives are. But nonetheless, we hope that whatever the outcome here will be, the President will still be able to make his decision after consulting the JSC, which is what is currently being done, and we'll take it from there. But of course, we must raise concerns where we see uncouth acts designed to create a particular political climate around the judiciary, as well as some judicial officers, if not all judicial officers.
Chrispin, if I could just sidetrack you there, we've been waiting for quite a while. High anticipation in terms of what would come out. When can we expect the deliberations to be finalized?
Well, that's definitely not within my scope of work. The JSC is a constitutional body, and that's why it has its own spokespersons and on its own processes, its own act. So I'm sure they will be able to provide you with an update as soon as they think it's necessary to do so.
All right. We'll leave it there, and we won't push you further on that particular matter. And so you've heard it all there from the spokesperson of the Justice Ministry, certainly a different wing of the bigger, broader Justice Department, and clarifying what its view is in terms of what has been brought forward in questioning in terms of the constitutional prerogative of the minister, which would be then Justice Minister Ronald Lamola, in terms of recommendation of those candidates that would be put forward to be interviewed. So that was just clearing the air. We know that that particular issue played out in a very, I would say, vociferous spat between Commissioner Julius Malema as well as Justice Minister Ronald Lamola. So that matter being clarified here, and certainly something that has been the most recent development, as of course we wait for the briefing that would give us an idea of what next in terms of the closure or the end of the deliberations, as to who would then be recommended to President Cyril Ramaphosa for the position of the Apex Court, the Chief Justice of South Africa. With that, it's back to you in the studio, Tim.
Thank you very much for that, Tumaole Mohlaoli, a reporter watching those JSC deliberations on a list of candidates after interviewing 4 people vying for the position of Chief Justice.